Okay, so let's learn a little bit more about matter. We've already learned that matter is everything around us. It can be in a solid, a liquid, gas, or plasma. And today we're going to talk about what happens when we add or take away energy to cause that change in state. Okay, so our EQ, what happens when heat is transferred to a substance? Okay, so any objects that moving, no matter how small it might be, has a certain amount of kinetic energy. That is the energy of its motion. Even things that don't appear to be moving, like your computer, your desk, your piece of paper, each one of those things uh, does have some kinetic energy. It does have a little bit of motion going on inside of it. And how we measure that is by measuring the temperature. Temperature is just the average kinetic energy of a substance. So how hot or cold something is. Thermal energy is the total kinetic and potential. So if we refresh our memories a little bit about potential energy, that is the energy of its place, of where it is. If we're talking about a roller coaster, for instance, it has a lot of potential energy at the top of the track. And that potential energy becomes kinetic energy as it moves down the track. Now, heat is just the transfer of that thermal energy. It's a transfer of from objects that are warmer to objects that are cooler. And when heat is transferred to a substance, that substance undergoes an increase in temperature. And so because of that, a change in state can happen. All right. Now, because we are just changing the state of matter, whether it is a solid, a liquid, or a gas, that is considered a physical change. We are not changing the type of matter that that substance is. We are simply changing the state that we find it in. So what's really going on here? What's really happening? When thermal energy, for instance, okay, so as thermal energy is moving from an area that is warmer to an area that is cooler, that energy is being transferred to those particles, and it's causing them to vibrate faster, raising their temperature. So if we're talking about something that's a solid, we're adding heat to it. The particles in the solid are starting to vibrate faster, and they break away then from those fixed positions and become a liquid. Now, if we're talking about taking heat away, which we can do, then we're talking about causing those particles to move more slowly. So that if we're talking about from a liquid to a solid, then those particles find that fixed position. And when we're taking that heat away and we're going from a liquid to a solid, that is called freezing. Now, in order for a substance to become a gas, those particles have to have enough heat. They have to now have enough kinetic energy that they are escaping from the liquid phase into the gas phase. And that is called vaporization. So again, those particles are just gaining enough energy to become that gas. There's nothing that says it has to happen at a certain temperature. So let's be careful with that. Water boils at a temperature of 100 degrees Celsius. But some substances, it's much lower temperature to cause it to vaporize, or for others, it's a much higher temperature. It all depends on the characteristics of that particular substance. Okay, now when we're talking about vaporization, two different things that can be happening. If vaporization is occurring on the surface of the liquid, it's called evaporation. And so if we just have a beaker of water sitting out, we notice over time that some of that water is gone. It has evaporated into the air. Now, if we are taking place below the surface of the water, where we're adding a lot of heat to it, for instance, in the labs that we do, we're adding heat to that water, and those particles begin to bubble and then escape, that is called boiling. And of course, the temperature at which water boils is 100 degrees Celsius. But again, that is not the same for every substance. Okay, what about the opposite? What about going from a gas to a liquid? That is condensation. That gas is losing energy, it's becoming a liquid, and that's called condensation. So, for instance, when you get home and you get yourself a nice cold glass of water, all of a sudden the outside of it feels wet. That is water vapor in the air, cooling down, losing energy, and condensing. Okay, sublimation. Some things are very fun, like dry ice, and sometimes they gain that energy so quickly that they forget about the liquid phase and they go directly from the solid to the gas. That is called sublimation. And so things like that, like dry ice, we have to keep at very, very cool temperatures. Otherwise, they're going to become a gas pretty quickly. Okay, that wraps up some of those phase changes that we're going to be talking about. And hopefully our labs that we do help you understand those a little bit better. Talk to you later.